It's 420. Everybody take a hit and be high. Hey there, Tiffany. Hey, Zach.
Hello.
How are you?
How y'all doing so far? We're having a bit of a slow week this week. We've got so many people out, not feeling well. So I'm gonna be leading. So I'm gonna need some of you guys' help in carrying on the conversation.
No problem.
If you're joining us from Facebook Live Land, hey, there we go. Just trying to get everything set. Welcome, guys. Like the opening said, if you are joining us on Facebook Land and want to be a part of our conversation, please drop your comments and questions into the comment section, and we will get everybody added on. So I'm trying to add people here to this to our little group here. I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit slow. So yeah, welcome everybody. Today we are, well, first, how you doing, Tiffany? Let's just introduce. I'm stressing out already. The pressure of doing it all on my own.
I'm doing great, actually. Been snowbound just like everybody else, but I'm jealous of the totals that everybody else has. So
hasn't that been insane?
Yeah. I was looking at a picture that Doug Rice shared, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got 2 inches. But
yeah,
just outside of the area that I'm in, they got 6. So
yeah, we're close to about 15 inches here in Sandy where I'm at, and 15 inches and growing. So
wow.
Now it's all melting. That's the problem. It's melting and has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing. How about you, Zach? How about your neck of the woods?
I've been homesick. I'm not doing well. I've got all kinds of pain and a whole bunch of symptoms going wild. And so I stayed home from work today. And right now I'm just about to medicate with some THCA flower and
nice.
Hang out with the dogs. I cleaned off about that much snow off my car. I've got a crack in my windshield, and if I don't clean it off, it does damage on my little Bose speaker in my Mazda. So joys of living in Utah, right? Exactly. That and the medicine, not having enough.
Yeah. Well, and we're going to be talking about the medicine, or there not being enough or not being able to afford it. That's going to be one of our conversations for today. So,
word.
Because that's a big problem for a lot of people. So I know myself included. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Alicia.
Hey.
Glad you can make it.
Yep. Me too.
We'll bring you on when you're ready. So. But yeah, so I mean, let's hop right into the conversation and start talking about one of the things we talked about, and that is affordability or unaffordability of Utah's medical cannabis program. I was doing some math earlier, and of course, as I was rushing to try to get everything set up, I left my notepad with all my pre-calculations down. But it's crazy. So anywhere, so I was figuring the price of cannabis per ounce, which is how I've always bought it on the street long before we had a medical cannabis program. That was usually a good, well, that's how I bought it by the ounce. And for the most part, the street, you could average between $150 and $200 for an ounce. That's some good quality, and you're not being ripped off. I mean, it should be free, but for what it is, black market being brought in from medical states and whatnot, that's about $150, $200 an ounce. But Utah, anywhere, I was doing some math, and we could also talk about the difference between the brands, but depending on the brand, by the ounce, you could be looking at anywhere between $230 to $480 an ounce. And again, these are, drug dealer prices that shouldn't, I thought one of the reasons we're going to work so hard and create a medical program in the state is so we could bring affordable quality medicine to patients, not at drug dealer cartel pricing. But we have what we have, right?
Right. We have what they let us have.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for many patients, that's unaffordable. Just doing the math If I were to buy my raw flower, and again, talking quality wise, again, I want top shelf quality. My before the program was started, my dealer was bringing top shelf medicine from California dispensaries. So there's an expectation of quality that I'm paying for at $200 an ounce, top quality. So, but you're not going to get top quality if you're buying Utah raw flower at
No.
$200 an ounce. Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like how when I took econ at Utah State, we learned about supply and demand. And if you don't meet the supply or you don't have the demand, then there's going to be market inequalities. And if we don't take care of that as the actual people who are the consumers, then who's going to? It's like we have the need that we have of the 4 ounces a month, and then also the 20 ounce or 20 grams of concentrate, but we're never going to get anywhere near that with what they're producing with the 8 cultivators. I don't know if we can try to find different options, but it's so weird that they have this perspective that they're going to have all this magical allotments that we're promised, and yet it doesn't happen. Sorry, my dog was licking my fingers. Anyway, that was my thought. Well, we need to have more supply and demand, and we don't have that yet.
We don't. And, you hear us use the word, Utah's a de facto cartel. That's kind of what it is. And they are interrupting the normal operation of market, of capitalism. The market, when it's left unattended, unregulated, works itself out. And you have, when you don't have competition, you have people that are able to fix prices. When you have 8 people and, really 4 people are supplying those 8 people, which are then supplying that, when you break down our program, it's able to be controlled, and, not a lot of backroom deals and handshakes, and you can guarantee everyone's fixing their prices the same place so they can maximize a profit. But, that's the problem with the medical program is profit isn't the incentive. If Utah wants to create a program where they can make profit and capitalism, their main incentive, that's called an adult use recreational program. Patients shouldn't have to shoulder the burden of giving the cartel the benefits of the cartel, or of controlling the whole entire market versus, if there's competition and, say we had 30 different suppliers all providing quality medication competing for the market, the market's going to fix itself. So, Christine, I see your hand up.
Hey there. I'm sorry I'm off camera, but I'm glad to join here in the background. Thank you for taking the hosting share. This is a tough topic for me. For the first time in 12 years, I've had to come off of cannabis, and I've been off of it for 4 days. And it's hard. It's a struggle. And I shared with you guys a screenshot of a patient in one of our cannabis groups who said they had to come off of the cannabis because they couldn't afford it either. And this goes to what Zach has been saying, I think, since the program was launched. We need home grow. That's really the best way to help costs for patients. But also another way with just staying with the program we have is we got to get the state to lower these fees that they have for this industry, for the license winners, because it's really hard for them to meet that financial burden when it's going to be passed down to us, and I knew that a medical program was going to be expensive because you have all of those licensing, the testing, the labeling, hurting it up. I don't know about you guys, but I used to just get my weed in a Ziploc bag. So it's a lot more costly when you have the labels, the overhead, and everything else. Sorry, I'm a little jittery. It's a little challenging right now. But it's hard. It's a really financial struggle. And I've watched patients go through this, and I was always fearful of the time that it was going to happen for me. And I'm at that point right now. And just so patients know, cannabis withdrawals are so much easier than opiates, but it's still uncomfortable.
It is. Yeah.
I think the biggest challenge for me right now, aside from the lack of emotional regulation, I don't want to go back on pharma. I've been off for 12 years and I don't even know where to start, you know?
Yeah.
So
And that's one, that's not something we should ask of need to demand of patients. In any medical, Utah likes to toot its horn about how our medical program is patterned after the pharmaceutical pro. This is a medical program. This isn't recreational. We need everything to look and appear. Appearances is everything. We go to these links to rename everything and give things special names so it has the appearance of being legit pharmaceutical. But there's many parts of our program that aren't like the pharmaceutical program. So I'll give an example. Anytime a patient has medical or financial hardship and can't take their medication, there are dozens and dozens of programs to make sure that a patient doesn't automatically just, well, you're cut off. A patient who is on SSRIs or benzos going off for 4 or 5 days, that can put them in the hospital. A patient that is on some of these medications for epilepsy and for migraines, sumatriptan, all those tiptins, the serotonin antagonists. If you stop those, you can have a full-on epilepsy attack and end up being in the hospital or just die. You can literally die. That's what happens. And so we have these programs set up where the pharmaceutical companies have grant programs. There's state programs that have grants. For HIV/AIDS medication, they have the Ryan White Foundation. If there's a person in the state of Utah that loses their job and they can't afford their HIV meds, they're not going to just, well, shit out of luck. No, we have programs put in place to ensure that. But our medical cannabis program doesn't have that. And so, we have these cartel pricing. I'll be honest, it's a huge sacrifice to be legit and stay in Utah's medical cannabis program as a veteran on 100% disability. I'll tell you right now, 60% of my monthly disability goes to Utah's program. My other option is to go back on pharmaceuticals. When I was doing that, I was in and out of inpatient mental health and having overdoses at least 2 or 3 times a year. I don't want to go back to that. It's been 8 years since I've been, in inpatient mental health there at the VA, thanks to cannabis. I'll say that again, cannabis. It was all those pharmaceutical drugs that were literally driving me crazy, raging. It made my PTSD worse. And, so what are my options? I can have all of my medications provided for free, sent to my door, shipping and everything by the VA. Or I could sacrifice 65% of everything that I get each month to buy my medicine and be legit with the state of Utah and then live in absolute poverty. I haven't been to the grocery store for a couple weeks now. But that is the reality of what Utah patients are faced with. I know I'm not the only one. Let me throw it back out to the group.
I know if it was my husband when he was on all of those medications from the VA, of course the VA pays 100% of all of that, and they're delivered and they're convenient, but boy, he was a mess when he was taking them. And he wasn't on them for very long. The amount of cannabis that he has to use to keep good is, for us in particular, it's not a ton. We're not in your situation where we're 65% of his disability, and my husband is a 100% disabled veteran. But it's a huge chunk. And then I'm also a cannabis patient. I'm controlling pain. He's controlling pain. I use a heck of a lot more than he does. I think he voluntarily makes the decision every single month to go without so that I can have it, because that's the kind of man that he is. And
that shouldn't be an option.
That's right. We should never be put in a situation where we have to decide to eat, have a roof over our heads, or have our medication. And you said something earlier that really, got me. You said control. And that's what they've done. The state of Utah knows what they've done. Legislators know what they've done. We talked about it a long time ago with for Prop 2, we talked about another DABC. Well, that's what they've done,
Yeah.
and because we only have those 8 growers, there's an imbalance, and the patients they're taking care of that imbalance, and they're dropping off. Where is it now? I know you and Christine talk all the time about the number of patients that are in the program and the the turnover rate for those patients. Is that public information where I can access it somewhere?
It
Because
is,
I'm
Valerie. Can I bring you in on this?
Yeah.
Because
Are you Val?
Hi, yeah, it is available. So it's on the website, like our medicalcannabis.gov website. They do annual report. It's actually, I think now they do bi-monthly report,
okay.
that not only tell you what every patient in the program, like how many patients we have, but also what condition that patient is there for. You can kind of watch the flow of those numbers. It also goes through even our pricing by county. It goes through purchasing by county. So it actually is a really very in-depth report that you can find out. And is it monthly now?
Yeah, it's a monthly report.
So it's a monthly
Good deal.
report. So the problem with those, though, that I will say is that even within those reports, like we also can see cub patient reporting as well. Our legislation does not, like the people actually making those laws sometimes don't know those numbers when we're in public forums, like referencing them. So while we have the stats, they're not really going back into shaping the market or shaping how we do our legislation. And so I think that's kind of, coming from the pharmaceutical realm, I happen to work in hematological conditions. And one of the things that really is different with general pharmaceuticals is that we have country managements, right, systems, right? So we have medical affairs groups in different countries and different regions who actually look at pricing. So what the pricing is for drugs here, that can only happen at a standard because they've looked at the EMEA requirements for the cap of that pricing on that drug, right? And if they want to sell in Europe and say Australia and Japan and the US, they can't have these giant pricing gaps. So for some medicines we see, they're regulated by a federal group of regulation, right? And sometimes it's really a global group of regulation that's saying you are trying to price out this standard of care medicine that we must have. So that's where we kind of see those consumer reports, like about the guy who did the HIV AIDS drug and was trying to price out astronomically, right? So we don't have that. Like Drew was saying, we don't have that in the cannabis market because it's not a federally regulated product, nor is it recognizable on a global scale as something that needs to be moderated. And because we have kind of built in, and this I think goes to Zach's point, right? Like we've built in the inability for patients to create their own access to treatment. You must go through a provider, you must go through a practitioner. That's all we've known when it comes to drugs, right? And now we have this model where really cannabis is like our supplements that we see. People grow Robois tea and people can walk down a road and pick it, right? But if you try to take that and put it in a satchel bag and call it Robos tea haiku or whatever, now you're working with an organization and a patenting agency and all of these extra funds that require you to then charge an astronomical amount to stay relevant, but to also use those regulatory systems that are put in place to make you relevant. And so I think that's a lot of what we're seeing here is, not only do we have a competitive market when it comes to licensing and all of that, we then, to Christine's point, have all the labeling, the changes in labeling that happen each session. We have fines that are happening. We have even
Well, and
within
that's not done just session wise, the
no,
regulatory, they're
that
able to
can
do that at
happen
will
whenever,
monthly.
right?
Yeah. And
So
that's the problem we're running into with the over regulation is, so we have, small manufacturers, I'll give the example, it'll heal you because I know Justin, he's a fellow veteran and a close friend of mine, so that's a small, uh, uh, you know, in business terms, we would call that a mom and pop type business establishment, and so he's ordering labeling for all of his products. When you order that, you're ordering it, 100,000, 500,000 impressions of you, so you get a roll of stickers, 500,000 of those, even though you may only be selling a couple thousand. So you get those printed up for all of your packaging, and then the health department comes out and says, oh, we decided this font is recreational and this color is recreational and this logo is bigger than 25% and we've deemed that recreational. So they have to go back and constantly then reprint, so
and
redesign their
repackage.
stickers,
Like sometimes
repackage,
you need whole new packaging for
Yeah.
large bulk quantities of product because the label that they now need to make doesn't actually fit on the product as
and
it
is
was.
illegal.
And now
It's illegal.
so all of those relabeling, remanufacturing, reconstituting, all of that is what a business uses to create their overhead budget. And that doesn't, if they don't have money in reserve to make those changes, they end up really then increasing their pricing and it gets transferred to the consumer. So
it does.
A lot of what we're seeing is the unfortunate cycle of consumerism. But what I think is the most disturbing part is kind of what Zach brought up, is that we have proof from Colorado, from Oregon, and from several areas in the Netherlands and in Europe, we have proof that allowing for patients to grow their own medicine up to 6 plants in any certain square quarter meter of however many miles on your property, that decreases illegal cells, that decreases overall toxicities that are seen from cannabis products. It decreases the requirements for just the overall management and policing of programs. There's less exchange product amongst patients and people, but there's also typically more of a community mindset that allows for patients to then create their own networks to create safe medicine opportunities for each other. So it actually goes into building a really great model for healthcare management, and kind of what we now see a lot of healthcare networks moving to, IHC is moving to group care. They're trying to ensure that there's sliding scales available. This is literally why the VA began to allow for recommendations around marijuana for clinicians, is because we have seen the impact that it would have on our Veterans Affairs system fiscally if we were not prescribing at the rate we prescribe to vets. And that would make a huge impact on our overall government funding and capabilities for our entire country. That could save us billions of dollars, quite frankly. So they had no choice once that fiscal data came out to not make a way for it to be accessible. So I know we're moving slow, right? Like this is way slower than it really needs to happen. But I think our state is a really great case for why decrim at large would actually be more fiscally responsible as a state, but it would also be more patient forward and also spiritually more aligned with supposedly what we are as a state. So
it's hard though, because you're giving the ideal of what would be great, and then we're having Utah, and I think also understanding, and I don't know if this is just part of the neurodivergency nature of me, where I always it's almost like OCD. I have to understand the why and the reasoning, and part of that is because when you're able to know the why, the intent, then you're able to fix it, because some things are broken intentionally. And, you know, a lot of people don't put that into play when, you know, oh, this program, it stinks. Well, we got to fix it. Well, yeah, you got to fix it. But are you trying to fix the things that were intentionally broke? Because I can promise you, you're not going to get to fix that, because that's broke for a reason. And so there are some things, and pardon, I need to clear my throat. On understanding why our program is so expensive. So, you know, we understand Utah psychologically, they love control. We have the DABC. They've proven how much they love to control that, except for when we have the NBA game. Then we'll break all of our rules and set up a pop-up shop, but that's a whole nother conversation. So, you know, we have control in the state of Utah. They absolutely love control. They even put control into the name. Actually, no, I'm sorry. They changed the name. They call it services now. So we don't think of it as control. So anyways, so then we repeated it with Prop 2, the program. The other thing to understand Utah is they have this ultra conservative, let's say libertarian desire to fund things without having the people pay for it. So when they created the compromise for Prop 2, the compromise, they created a program that self-funded, so it didn't draw from the general budget. So Utah taxpayers aren't paying for it. So how did they do this? Well, if you want a license, you got to pay $100,000 a year to the state of Utah to register. If you want to be a grower, you got to do $50,000 each year. You know, if you want to be a licensed this, and so, you know, every single person that is buying in has to pay these $500,000 in some cases combination of fees to the state of Utah, which then, you know, they also have to pay so much a year to pay for the MJ Freeway, which is the computer system that tracks everything from seed to sell. Then you also have to pay for is it EVS, ECS, the other program where they can handle all the patient's information and all that. And so, but the state of Utah is not going to pay for it. So every single person that's a grower, a manufacturer, a processor is being charged huge fees by the state of Utah to pay for these licenses for this program. So now we have this program with all of our licenses, all these fees. You know, the Utah Department of Health and Human Services and the Agriculture Department's taking in millions and millions of dollars to fund this program. Well, what's going to happen? They're going to pass that off onto the patients. So, you know, the $100,000 every year. And then also, we're not talking about the fines where they come arbitrarily, willy-nilly, coming through with random unannounced inspections and, you know, doing $2,000 there, $2,000 there. Oh, you have one gummy that's out of the you haven't put in the fridge yet. Like it's setting, they haven't put in the fridge, but no, that's $2,000. And there's no arbitration. There's no way to challenge it. There's no way to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't agree with that. You just got to take it. So what happens? They pass it on to the patient. So that's why you have $75 vape carts. Whereas in California, you can buy a 1 gram high quality vape cart for $36. That's the differences. So understanding, and, you know, I could even go further federally with tax laws and the Arcanian drug war, is a lot of these dispensaries and processors can't write off basic things that normal businesses are able to do, like payroll and building and facilities and all that. Normal, any business, if you open it a gym, you can write off those for your taxes, but nope, not if you're doing marijuana, because that's drugs. So they don't allow that. So normal offset that these businesses can offset, again, that's offloaded to the patients. So understanding where we are, this is why your medicine's so fracking expensive.
And Drew, honestly, like with you saying that, I just wanted to highlight one thing you said, because it's just was ringing in the back of my head. It's like the war on drugs. So that is literally like the point, is like, what are we trying to fix? And is it even fixable in our state? Or is this like, has the system, which I guess I already know the answer to this, which is why I'm saying it, but, you know, the war on drugs systemically built in things that make medicine more expensive and less accessible for patients overall. And that's why I think it's so, like, all of us here know, like, decrim, like we can scream
Yeah.
it from the top of our lungs and see how that would change the system in across everything, right? But
Yeah.
to your point, it's like, yeah, what is actually fixable within our program, and are we focusing on that, or
Yeah.
are you still working in the framework of a purposefully built system that is broken on purpose?
Exactly.
And now our state is still building in a framework with a system that was broken on purpose.
Yep. And I think until patients recognize that, and also lawmakers, so the back to what I said about my neurodivergent tics of if you understand the why and accept that is reality, that is the reality, that is a framework which we're operating in. Now we can fix it. But I think we're still working in the things where people don't understand why they have $75 vape carts. And, until lawmakers understand that, your desire to offset all of the costs onto the back of the patient makes it unaffordable for patients. Again, like I said, as a veteran on a limited disability income, that's taken a large portion of my disability. Right now it's shit out of luck. The prices aren't going to change for me, for anybody. We have these subsidy programs, but that's, breadcrumbs. When you have people starving, a breadcrumb, sure, it's going to little bits, but that's not solving the problem. So how do we get the lawmakers to recognize, come to, the burden they're putting on us is not sustainable?
Zach, do you want to chime in here?
I was just thinking, if we could have another couple, 2 or 3 or 4 more licenses of growers where they could be equity, like maybe say people that are disenfranchised, like the Ute tribes, or say anybody like that has been incarcerated for cannabis or for any of these that are nonviolent, have special opportunities for those that are really struggling, and then also give us more medicine. I don't know. They're so focused on these little breadcrumbs, and also these little, oh, we got the psilocybin bill out and it's doing so great. And it's like, well, what did that even do for us? Like, why can't we have that energy and put it towards something where we could actually have true change in people's lives, and actually everybody would be benefited by that? But we're so focused on these little, I don't know, narratives that they try to push, that we could actually have true change with compassion and not just about money. And I think money's great, but also people like us want to offer our time and our energy, and want to work on farms, and want to offer volunteering. I don't know if volunteering and also having more community outreach could be an option, but they need to just see that we're wanting to build community. But it's like they're so small in their scope that we just are stuck in their narrative.
Well, and again, it's also down to control. The lengths that you have to go to even step on and visit a cannabis farm in the state of Utah, where they have to take your name, your license, you have to be given a card, you have to be, monitor the whole, you again, coming from a military background, where like I've, in my military capacity, I had access to quite a bit of areas, and the level of security is nowhere near this overreaction of what Utah is doing with a plant. And it's one of those things that's like, doesn't compute, but oh well, okay, overreaction. So I think that will one, we need to the state of Utah needs to relax. But I think, yeah, people have an opportunity. And another idea, sorry, my brain is so scattered, that would help, similar to kind of what you were talking about, Zach, is I'm going to pull an idea from what California did, and that is collectives. If Utah can use the collective concept and still maintain their regulation, and I think that would really cut down on the pricing. So how does a collective work? So how we could do it in Utah, say for example, so if you're a patient, as a patient who's qualified, you can become a member of this collective. And with that, the collective is able to grow those, if the state of Utah determines 6 plants per patient per year or per quarter, however they want to do that, that collective will be able to grow those 6 plants for you on their site. Because a lot of the problem we have is people live in apartments. People live in areas where they can't, they don't have the air of the real estate to grow their own. So the collective takes that, and again, using Utah's fear, their fear is people with 10-foot marijuana bushes growing over their fences along State Street as you're driving down there in Salt Lake. That's the irrational fear in their mind. So how do you solve that fear? Collectives. So it'd be just like the rest of the grow houses. We have a secure facility, and again, each patient 6 plants, so you have 120 patients. 6 times 120, you have, and that's your grow, and you grow it, and then as a patient, you go and you pick up your medicine at cost. So none of this passing on all these state fees and whatnot. That's an easy solution. Again, everything could be done, tracking from seed to sale. We know exactly where it is, how much. It's grown in a facility. And all that. It's an easy way that Utah could still maintain their control, and patients can get their medicine at much lower costs. So that's just one idea, the collective idea, but nothing's being done on the Hill right now for Utah. There's no legislation currently going on to address pricing for patients. There's nothing on the Hill that's going to work on deregulating so the growers and manufacturers won't have such a burden that they're offsetting. In fact, there's more regulation coming for them. So all of that, again, is going to be passed off to patients. So, how can we fix it? Well, nothing's going to be done this year, maybe in special session. But, we need to start talking about actual solutions that exist within the reality of our program. And again, the basis of that is understanding why things are expensive the way they are. I'm just going to our Facebook comments. Chris, sorry to trigger you with the breakdown of why things are so expensive. Tim's saying we need to grow our own. That's the way to stop all of it. It would change the whole show. Collectives are a huge problem. It turns into sales again. And again, yeah, it's you make a very good point, Tim. Things always have a habit of going back to the money and corruption, but.
Well, and I just want to jump in. Sorry, Alicia, we'll jump to you in a sec, but I do think that one thing that, collectives require also still the aspect of licensing. So that requires some more legislation to be built in and kind of put in place and agreed upon. It is a great way to create like patient community and direct to consumer medicine, right? So it's definitely not a thing. I think really what we're starting to see, or what we've seen from at least 2 people, and Tim has always really very forward about this, but like the option to have more vertical growing in our state is a huge aspect of what could happen. As patients, I think that part of what the industry really is looking for is more understanding of what it is that they can do, or what it is that patients do want. And I think that's one of the avenues that as TRUCE we've been trying to, now that we're not just focused really on legislation, but more so about really the advocacy side of creating patient feedback loops so that your wants are really getting to the right places. I would say when you do go into your dispensary, when you do go to some of these events, talk with the industry leaders, talk to the people who are growing your medicine. I feel like I've had so many wonderful conversations with every single dispensary owner here. Quite frankly, there's not anyone who doesn't believe that their company or their product or their approach is going to do better. I think that's what they all want to do. But they're caught in a system as well of trying to make their own money and have their own business, but also follow the law so they can keep being in existence. And so I think by, lobbying some of our industry leaders who are really thinking about how we change the industry in our state and talk to them about vertical grow, talk about some of the issues they're having with getting hemp, where I just was contacted literally on our earlier leadership call during it by a friend who was looking for a USDA hemp grower, organic hemp grower, because we now don't have as many people growing organic hemp because it's cheap to create synthetic opportunities and distill down medicine. So I think by being a very forward thinking patient, which is what I consider all of you guys to be, because you're here regularly trying to figure out what to do, it really is that we as the people consuming need to start having more elevated conversations with the people producing our medicine and create conversations around what our industry is doing to approach higher yields in state, but also to look for other companies around us that do produce organic hemp and have interstate commerce on their side to provide us with more medicine. So I do think that a lot of what we can do is what we're kind of doing, which is using our voice, but asking more deliberate questions about why our production is so low, but also what networking can we do as patients to connect you with people we know, like you said, Zach, resources we know that we feel confident in, and start building the bridge to have our industry working as one solid unit. I think that's an unfortunate part of having such little licensing. It really has put targets on a lot of people's backs. It has distilled down the sharing of resources, the sharing of production, like anomalies where somebody has figured out this really cool way to produce something, but they're afraid to share it because that may take away from their overall overhead. That sucks that our industry feels like they also can't be one solid community serving the community of people who want them in their state.
Yeah. Tim also gave another great idea, is grower to patient exchange is huge. And then he also said, we try to talk to them, but it seems they like it the way that it is. And, that is the problem where we have such a small market. I could give another example. We had on the Hill this year a bill that would have allowed and opened up a market. This would have benefited patients where manufacturers can deliver out of their where they process instead of actually a pharmacy. So in some cases, manufacturer would have to drive their product from Salt Lake all the way down to Cedar City, and then they could deliver from Cedar City all the way back up to Salt Lake. That was how it was. So they're going to try to fix the law where people could manufacturers can distribute from their distribution center. But that was blocked and it was changed, and there was all this shenanigans going on, backroom deals, because there was 2 other growers that have the Salt Lake market, and having one more person would have hurt their bottom line. So they're gonna interfere and make sure that doesn't happen. But so we have the power. That's the power. You have 2 people out of the 3 that are able to really undercut patients so they can keep the monopoly of the market, and that's how it's going. But so if you had, say, 12 people, that dilutes the power of those 2 other people that are keeping their control of the Salt Lake market. And again, when you have more people, prices come down and they have to compete, and that's better for patients. But we're stuck with this exclusive cartel market. So it's not like what Tim said. They like it the way that it is. In the state of Utah, it's easier for them to control 8 companies with a tight fist than, say, 32 companies, because something might slip through their fingers. So we are what we are. So what are solutions? I like to talk solutions. How can we fix this? I know, Alicia, you had a comment.
I was just bringing up, I guess I was just asking a question. Didn't they just legalize for personal growing in Washington?
I'm not sure. I have not been following that. Does anybody else know that.
I have a family member that lives there, and he sent me an article. I'll share it on the TRUCE thing about,
Hmm.
apparently they just legalized for, I don't know if it's a patient thing or what. I haven't looked into it enough, but that was like clicking in my head when this was coming up. I'm
Yeah.
like, why don't we follow like what these other states are doing and the way that they run their programs? Like, what's the problem here? And a lot of people are looking at it like that too. So yeah, we definitely need solutions for sure. Something's
Yeah, I
gotta give.
Googled it and I think they did, Alicia. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But it looks like they did. And that allows for people 21 and older to grow up to 6 plants for personal use with a maximum of 15 per household.
And then there's a lot of
Growing
stipulations.
out of public view and not readily smelled outside of the premises. And that's really it.
Well, and I think it needs to be
Sorry.
said, like,
It
Oh,
looks
go ahead.
like Illinois and New Jersey are starting to open this up, or thinking about opening it up as well. So they are.
I do want to say,
that is a
home
great
grow is not easy. I don't.
It's not,
It's
but
not
I'm-
tomatoes. You know, it's a
People.
challenging.
And honestly, like, I think that's what our lawmakers have not understood about a lot of our approach to even our bill writing and
Mhm.
our expectations for industry leaders and also our policing is like growing cannabis. It's not this easy thing that everybody just will do. Like
No.
you have to really love it. You have to be interested in cultivating. You have to get a dark room. You have to have the right lighting structures. You have to have temperature control. Like, this is a process for people who want to understand how
Yeah.
to process and have their medicine accessible. So you're not just going to get every Tom, Dick, and Harry just like popping up their own grow in their backyard. They might try, but they may not be very successful for quite some time.
Yeah, it won't grow anything.
Yeah, without really taking into consideration the care and love that you're putting into creating your medicine. So it's a really thanks for bringing that up, Alicia, because I imagine, and this was also what I was going to say to you, Zach. I think that the idea of an equity program is exactly what would be the greatest step that our lawmakers could make to say we are considering patient like need, and also we're considering being a leader in our industry and state, right? Like, if they truly were trying to do the easiest, lowest hanging fruit, it would be, let's create an equitability program. If you are growing a certain amount of percentage that gets, given and donated, you get these particular tax breaks and you become an equitable license holder. And you are now a community provider, a community medicine provider, right? So there's a lot of ways that they could already work within their own legislation to create equitable access. They've already implemented licensing for vertical grow. They just aren't giving it or approving it. They're wanting it to stay competitive. They already opened up interstate commerce to allow for, dirty hemp to come in. Why can't we do it in a way that allows for clean THC, full-blooded, cannabis to come in? And also, why can't you create an equity program that takes the money that you're taking from all of these deductions and regulations and taxation and create equitable partners that are hosted and held by the government, who we know are creating more medicine that is free for people.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of options within our framework that our Department of Health and UDAF could do. I just honestly do not believe that they necessarily have the background and or the partners to build what could be built.
Yeah. And it like you said, we have the ability to do that. Again, another example would be, I'll give an example of, I don't want to call anyone out, so I'll give an imaginary cannabis name. Well, Firefly. So say Firefly Cannabis Company sets up 25% of their product to this equitable program. if you do that, then, we'll give you 75% off your state licensing fees if you participate in that program. It's an easy way to incentivize it. A lot of these companies would love to reduce some of their overhead costs from the fees. And if all that means is, 25% of our product has to be, marked for this purpose I think that would be an incentive because again, it's all about incentives. You got to incentivize them to want to do something. Right now, there's nothing to, pulling at their heartstrings other than that to get them to want to lose profits. And again, profits aren't bad. I think we harp on, industry and whatnot, but, we go to work to make a buck, to pay the bills, to, have fun, to live life. So there's nothing wrong with that. But we do need to find an equitable a process in that. So I hopefully we can push our lawmakers to doing something like that. Tim, I just want to get some of Tim's Facebook comments. He wants to say there are thousands of homegrowns going on right now. There's more patients growing in Utah more than ever. You guys would be very surprised how many medical patients are grown in Salt Lake alone. And that is right, unfortunately. And that happens when we have a program that is not sustainable and not accessible to everyone. Not everyone has the ability to be dropping, $300 a week, $200 a week to, the Salt Lake cannabis cartel. That's just not a reality. So they're going to grow their own. But yeah, we're coming up to the end of our. I'm tired talking. We've talked this talk to death, right?
Did you have something you wanted to say, Zach?
I just wanted to say one last thing. The first time I saw an actual living cannabis plant, it changed my whole entire interaction. It wasn't just to get high. It was like, this was a living plant that was giving me health. And so I think that if we could get more patients to have that experience, the better. And understanding the growth cycles, the vegetative period, the flowering period, how to dry, how to trim. Like I did a lot of volunteering, and just being around that experience just made it so it seemed more real. So I think if we could get more of that, that's the goal. So more connection and less detachment.
Definitely. Thank you. Yeah, so I guess we're coming up on the end. Let's do our little Brady Bunch. Everyone turn on your cameras and say hey. But let's keep pushing these topics. Let's keep having this conversation. That's really the only way we can change things. We gotta just keep pressing our people. And also, I want to say there's a lot of people in our community that are sick this week. So I want to send big hugs and sending healing energy out to your way. Get better.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, everybody.
For coming, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Next week,
your guys' experience means a lot, and it's really important for patients to hear each other and hear the reality. So thank you guys for being vulnerable with us all.
It does. Thank you. And also, just for a reminder, next week we're going to be starting our 420 Zoom sessions at 7:00. So we have a lot of people in our community that 420 is just a difficult time. So we're going to try 7:00 out and see if that will work. It's 420 somewhere. So come join us next week, March 2nd, at our new time, 7:00. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Get feeling better, Christine.